We're just a couple of weeks away from the beginning of the college basketball season. I know it's still football season for a lot of people, but for us basketball people out there, college basketball is right around the corner. And what better way to get you guys prepared for the upcoming WVU men's basketball season than talking to the leader himself, Mr. Ross Hodge. Coach, welcome to the program.
Yeah, glad to be here. Thanks for having me.
So what have these last couple of months been like for you? I know you've been really hectic. Chaotic is probably another word to say, but just kind of give our audience a little bit of perspective of what these last couple of months and even these last couple of weeks of the season have been like for you.
Yes, I guess a whirlwind is probably an accurate description. You get the job in April and instantly got to kind of hit the ground running, and that initial surge is really all about recruiting at that point in time. It's pretty much sun up, sundown, trying to assemble your roster, which we feel good about, and happy with the guys that we were able to get, and then you kind of transition from that to the beginning of the summer when you actually get them all here and you kind of start this journey that we're about to embark on, and get a chance to get to know everybody a little bit and try to create some habits and some expectations of how we want to do things and how we want to play. And you get your condensed. That's probably one of the biggest changes over the last 10 years of college athletics, college basketball in particular, is like we actually get to work with our guys in the summer. So you really do, kind of start practice, you would call it, in June. It's just in a shortened amount of time. And the same way when you first get back to school in late August, early September, and then you transition into the phase that we're in now, kind of the preseason phase of what you're doing, and you get longer stretches of practice time. You get to throw in a weekend day, and leading all the way up until this first weekend when we kind of have our first opportunity to go play against somebody else, which we're all looking forward to.
Yeah, they call it the super secret scrimmage. It's not so secretive.
Not anymore.
It's not secretive anymore. But we'll talk more on the court here in a second. But just off the court, in those first couple of weeks after you got here in April, you were starting to assemble a staff, starting to get onto that recruiting trail, and you get your roster together now. When you were going through that, were you doing more relationship building, or were you doing more program building and starting to establish those pillars to what you want this program to be?
Yeah, combination of both. Combination of both. I firmly believe that you win with people. Whether it's your staff, your players, your support staff, your student assistants, your graduate assistants. A big part of that is trying to make sure you get the right people in the room together. And relationships are important. I know it's a time period that can be a little frustrating for everybody with college athletics, and it can feel so transactional because of the nature of NIL and because of the transfer portal. And but I still think at the end of the day, relationships matter, people matter, and we went out with that in mind, that we wanted to get great people that love basketball and love each other, and wanted to be part of West Virginia basketball, the state, the university, and that just wasn't a transactional in a way, that you still can really tie everybody together, tie everybody to the community, and go play for something bigger than yourself.
In regards to the relationship building side of things, are you starting to become more creative with that as a head coach? Because you mentioned just the ever-changing world in collegiate athletics. Are you starting to become more creative in how you approach those relationships with your players now, or are you still the same old, same old?
I don't think you're ever the same old, same old. You always got to try to find ways to do, things better, whether it's, on the floor, off the floor. You're always looking for ways to improve as a coach and a staff. And because of the nature of college athletics, I do think you have to be a lot more intentional. Your days count, and you got to make sure that you're making the most of those, because you do have a short amount of time to try to put it together and try to get to know these guys. So intentionality is a big deal, and you got to have purpose with everything you're doing. Not only trying to get better as a basketball team, but trying to again improve your relationships and get to know these guys, what makes them tick, what's important to them, and make sure that we're serving them as well and serving their needs.
I know we're a little under a month away from the beginning of the 2025-26 season, but just your comfort level with this team. I know you guys have been able to get on the floor a couple of times. You mentioned your super secret scrimmage. You'll have your exhibition game against Wheeling coming up. Comfort level with your team now. Where are you at with that, and what do you want to see moving forward?
Yeah, we're still, we're still getting better. We're still improving daily. Still trying to create habits and build on those. And, I do think it is probably time for us to play someone else. I've kind of mentioned that here recently that, we have built a lot of habits, practice habits, and you try to, put your team in adverse situations. You try to be a visionary and prepare for every circumstance that comes up. But until you are able to get out there with just your team and you're actually playing another team, that is where growth can really, really begin. There's been a lot of growth. But now we're ready to reach that next part of growing as a team. And, ultimately you want to be playing your best basketball late, and there will be a lot of learning and a lot of learning on the fly. And you got to try to find a way to win those games early while you're learning about yourself as well.
I know you don't need to give us right now your starting five for game one against Mount St. Mary's, but just when you're starting to identify who's going to be that first lineup, then maybe even that 6th, 7th, 8th man off the bench, is that more, are you doing more competition? Are you doing more how they react to certain situations, situation basketball, I should say? What goes into identifying who you're going to throw out onto the floor there in game one?
Yeah, the biggest thing is who can execute what you're asking them to do, asking them what you want them to do, and who can actually go out there and execute and do it for long stretches of time, And so right now as a group, let's just say there's 10 plays. Well, as a group, we may play 3 of those 10, quote unquote, the right way. What you're trying to do is you're trying to, elongate the stretches of good basketball and execution, and you're trying to shorten the amount of time where you play the play wrong. So ultimately, you're going to put the people out there that can execute the best on both ends of the floor. And we're a long way away from knowing for sure who that'll be. You have some ideas, but I've never been married to the idea that the 5 guys that may start are even your 5 best players. Brennan Lorient's a good example of that, who played for us last year. He was a first-team All-League player in the American, but he didn't start one game for us. So, you're looking at combinations, who needs to be on the floor with who, when, knowing that they're not all going to play 40 minutes. You are going to have to sub, and just trying to figure out what lineup combinations work best. What's your best defensive lineup? What's your best offensive lineup? Who would you put in there if you had to get a stop at the end of the game? Those things we're still working through and still trying to learn.
In regards to the evaluation process, are you looking more at the stats, what they do in live situations? What goes into the evaluation process whenever you, again, similar question to the last one, but just the evaluation, what goes into that? And are you kind of more of a numbers person when it comes to that?
Yeah, definitely numbers tell part of the story. They don't tell the whole story. It's definitely a tool we use, to either, as a cross-reference to what you're seeing. Sometimes what you're seeing and what you're feeling, it is an emotional game. Coaches are emotional creatures. So, you can't allow your emotions to factor in decisions. And then sometimes the data doesn't back up what you're feeling. Sometimes it does. But, we're not beholden to one way of evaluating. It's kind of the holistic term, where you're looking at a lot of different factors and, trying to figure out ultimately, who makes their teammates better? Who makes the team better simply by being on the floor? And maybe they don't even have to score a bucket, So you're just you're evaluating it all, honestly.
Let's kind of step away from the team for a second, but you're the 4th coach in 2 years, okay? And I know, as you all know, you've seen the state, you've seen the passion that comes with that as well. Expectations for yourself, being able to understand that, but then also kind of put your own narrative on that storyline, being the 4th coach in 2 years? Yeah,
it's each situation is a little different, I think. But for me specifically, being here, what I would like to do is try to bring some level of stability to the program and an anchor, so to speak. Obviously you got to win basketball games to do that, but that would be my hope and my goal. There is so much turnover. There's going to be so much natural turnover in the era of the transfer portal and college athletics the way it is. But if we can anchor it as a staff and as the head coach of the program and represent this university well, the people of West Virginia, the state of West Virginia, and do it in a manner that makes people proud with like some sort of stability where they can, hey, like that's our coach, that would be the vision, aside from winning and competing for championships, both Big 12 and national championships, but bringing a level of continuity and stability to the program that you're going to have turnover in your roster, but at least people can feel comfortable knowing who their coach is.
What's your biggest takeaway was not only this fan base, but just the people of the state as well?
Yeah, leading up to accepting the job, anyone that I talked to that had any knowledge of this region just raved about the people. They not one person had anything negative to say, and they were like, man, these are some of the most genuine people, some of the nicest people, some of the most caring, passionate people that you'll ever be around. And from the moment that I've got here, both myself and my family have felt that and felt welcomed, and you can certainly feel their passion for WVU and the Mountaineers and the men's basketball program and across the board, and it's been fun to see.
You mentioned a couple minutes ago about competing and winning for national titles, Big 12 titles as well, but you also tied it into the turnover as well. Trying to keep a fan base cautiously optimistic each season. I mean, it's a completely new roster this season, but just approaching that and making sure that everybody's aware this is a troubling time for not only us, but just for everybody. How do you go about doing that, but also wanting to compete for titles?
Yeah, we certainly don't have a monopoly on the amount of turnover. From a player standpoint. And again, it kind of gets back to my point of bringing some continuity with the staff and an understanding that, hey, like you still can connect. Even if they're here for a year, even a guy like Honor Huff who's only going to be here for a year, you can still really connect him with the fan base, connect him with the state, connect them with the university so that when people watch us play, watch him play, watch next year's team play, that they do feel, that, hey, they are playing for us and they're not just playing for themselves. They're not just playing what they get out of it. They have like poured their heart and soul into this. And that would be ultimately, like I said, what you would want, what you would hope for, that people can see that and they can tell, like, man, these people, this group for this year. And as you're building it, you want to make sure you're able to kind of hang on to some of your younger players, your freshmen, your sophomores, so you can have some foundation that people can identify with from year to year. But more importantly, that, again, when they watch us play or they watch those guys play, that they know that, hey, this wasn't just a stopgap for them. They legitimately have bought into this state, bought into this fan base, and bought into the university.
Before we talk about a couple players individually, let's talk about just a guy or two in your mind. Obviously, you've been around this group for a couple of months now. Who's a guy that has caught your eye but's not getting enough attention in regards to what they can provide to this year's group?
Yeah, I think it would be Morris, the transfer from South Carolina. He's probably been our most committed guy in a sense of really trying to do what he's been asked to do. And he does have SEC experience. He averaged 6.5 last year in that league, and he shot 40% from three and can really make shots. But aside from that, he's really bought into, defending and executing. And he's had a great summer. Got nicked up a little bit, a week or two ago, and has missed just a little. Nothing crazy, but he's an underrated piece that, like we talked about earlier, that when he's on the floor, he's making other people better, and he's making those other guys' job easier with what he's been able to do.
You mentioned Honor Huff just a couple minutes ago. Talk about him. That's a guy that came onto the scene the second half of the season strongly last year for Chattanooga.
Yeah.
He's now coming into his own. There's a lot of hype behind him. Expectations for him this year. What are you wanting to see out of him, especially this being his last year of college basketball?
Yeah, I just want him to be himself. He led the nation in threes last year. I think he made like 132.
It's pretty good.
At around, not bad, around 41%. And, but he's actually good with the ball in his hands too. He's gotten better in that area this year. He's not just a shooter, per se. He's a good facilitator. He can make plays for others, and he's getting better defensively as well. And yeah, I would expect him to be exactly who he is, and we need him to be aggressive and need him to make shots. But and he's got a great personality. He's very infectious, and need him to be who he is.
In regards to Treysen Eaglestaff, another guy that transferred in, talk about him. What does he give to this team that you really enjoy watching whenever you do see him in live action, that you're optimistic about this season?
Yeah, he's another one. He has high level shot making ability. He's got good size. He can really shoot the ball. He's got a good feel, good understanding for the game. Can make the game easy for others, and he's another one. Like these guys came here, good offensive players, knowing that we do have a tilt to the defensive side of the ball, and knowing that they needed to improve in that area to be the best version of themselves, and for us to be the best version of ourselves. And he's taken that challenge on, and both those guys are very coachable, along with the rest of the group. They're a very coachable group. They've opened their hearts to being pushed hard and taking accountability, and that's what you would want from seniors.
I know I asked you about a guy that's maybe not getting enough attention, but just give me a guy that you've seen the most growth from the time that they first got on the campus to where they are now in the middle of October. Who's made the biggest growth in their game?
Yeah, well, literally and figuratively, it's probably been DJ Thomas, and we signed DJ in the fall of last year when we were at North Texas, and when he came and visited in the fall, he was 6'7", 215. And when we left, he got out of his letter of intent. When he came visited here in the spring, he was 6'8.5", 230.
That's pretty good
So
size.
physically, he's changed, and he's really grown a lot as a player. He's another one, played for a very high level high school team there in Texas at Allen High School. He's been coached, won a lot of games, and he's gotten a lot better. And he's been a pleasant surprise for sure.
Stylistically, I know you got a lot of guys that can score the basketball. You're really big too in your backcourt. Your front court, I should say. But just give me the philosophy of what this team will look like come game one, and especially as we enter throughout non-conference play.
Yeah, I think there'll be some morphing and changing as you go through. Like I said, we'll have to learn about ourselves while we're playing in some ways, but we're always going to anchor ourselves on defense. We've got to be, historically, whoever's been the best defensive team in the Big 12 has typically won the Big 12. That's our ultimate goal. So we do have different ways we can play. Defensively, you can play bigger, you can play smaller. So that gives you some versatility, which you always want on that end of the floor. And then offensively, we just want to take the best. Just simply put, I know it sounds very simple. You want to take the best shot that you can get. Sometimes that takes 5 seconds. Sometimes that may take a little longer. And that's what we're learning too. And shot selection isn't an equal opportunity. So, we've got to learn, hey, like, what is actually a good shot for us? It's a good shot for me, may not be a good shot for you. It's a good shot for Honor, may not be a good shot for Jasper. But as long as we all can get to the point where we understand, hey, this is what's good for us, then I think you can see you can play some different ways.
You mentioned the Big 12 Conference, and we'll talk about your tie with that here in a second, but just what are you seeing collectively from this group? Ken Palm's numbers came out just a couple of days ago, and obviously he loves the Big 12 again.
Yeah.
I know just from your perspective, you got to win on the defensive end, but what stands out to you collectively about this conference this season?
Yeah, it's no different than, again, I think maybe last year they was the first time in a while that they weren't the number one ranked conference on Ken Palm, and it was probably more of an outlier than anything with how good the SEC was. But really good coaches, really good players, great fan bases, difficult places to play. So it really has the markings of what makes it a special league. You can check pretty much every box of what makes it. Again. Great teams, great coaches, great players, great locations, great environments, and you just know that every night's going to be a battle.
Your tie to the Big 12 is obviously Coach Grant out there at Texas Tech.
Yeah.
What's that going to be like? We don't want to look too far ahead, but just give me your perspective of what that will be like for the two of you, especially yourself, whenever you do go up against Texas Tech.
Yeah, it's like you said, it is kind of hard to look that far ahead because you're just such in right now mode. You know, you're literally just trying to find a way to get a little better. We had practice this morning. We'll have practice tomorrow morning. You're literally just trying to figure out how to get better in that regards. But I do have so much, personal respect for Grant outside of not only being a very good basketball coach. He's an incredible person, somebody that actually walks his faith openly and lives it, just doesn't talk it. He really lives it. And so it's been awesome to see, what they've been able to do out there his first 2 years out there. And, in a lot of ways, I'm, proud of him. And, I think that night, the first night is probably always a little weird. But when the ball goes up, you're out there just trying to execute, but it is it's been neat to see, man. I just, like I said, have a lot of respect for him. He's an incredible basketball coach, but more importantly, he's an incredible man.
Talk to me about this first half of the season, and I'm talking specifically about this non-conference slate. You open up game 1 against Mount St. Mary's. You have a game against Pitt coming up at home. Then you guys will play Wake Forest down in Charleston, and you have the Shriners Classic down there in South Carolina. So just how important is this non-conference stretch just in regards to, again, morphing your team together, but then also trying to see what you've got before you get into conference play?
Yeah, you want to there's a lot of different, ways to approach your non-league schedule for us. You want to make sure you're providing opportunities for yourself to get some marquee, non-conference wins, which we feel like we did with the way that we scheduled. You mentioned that you got Pitt at home. Obviously, that's a monster game to everybody. You got Ohio State in Cleveland, the Cavs arena. That'll be a great opportunity for a neutral court game. Wake Forest down in Charleston. And then, like you mentioned, in Charleston, South Carolina, open up with Clemson for sure. And then you got, on the other side, you got Georgia and Xavier over there. So definitely wanted to challenge ourselves. And, you don't want to go into league with like kind of a false sense of security. You want to know exactly, who you are and what you need to improve on. And if there's things that, areas where you got to improve, you certainly want to find out in November and December as opposed to like January and February.
Let's talk about recruiting in the last few minutes of this. In state-wise, I know, as you well know, this state has produced some really high-level basketball players that have gone on to the Division I level. Not as much as you would see like in Texas, New York, but there's some guys in the mix, obviously. Of course. From your perspective, how much would go, in regards to recruiting, how much will that go into looking in-state compared to regionally?
Yeah, I think you're always going to want to start at home, and start in your own backyard and make sure you have the, you're getting good evaluations and building good relationships with people right here. And then, your net is just going to spread out a little more from there and cast a wide net. We do have a powerful national brand. West Virginia is very recognizable across not only this country but internationally. And I've heard people say it time and time again, and it really is true now that I've been here, that there's always a West Virginia connection.
Always a West Virginia connection.
And so that's certainly true with the recruiting. And ultimately you would love it. And you got to make sure you take care of your backyard, but ultimately you're just trying to put together a roster that you feel comfortable with that can compete and win the Big 12.
You mentioned just there's always a West Virginia connection, but there's also a lot of passion behind that as well. Give me your perspective of just continuing to build relationships with the alumni and the former players as well. I've talked with several of them over the last couple of months. Everybody raving just about what you guys have been able to do in your short amount of time. Just give me your perspective of building those relationships, sustaining those relationships, and then just continuing to get them involved here at WVU.
Yeah, well, the truth is, this is their program. This is the alumni, the former players, the fan bases, the states. This is your program, and I've just been fortunate enough to be a caretaker of the program in this moment. So that's not something that I take lightly. That's not something that I take for granted. You know, I understand how important it is to people, and I want to be a good steward of this program. And so much of what I want to do here is again for the people here in West Virginia, for the former players, that everybody can be proud of what we're doing, and everybody again can really feel like, yeah, this is our program, and this is our coach, and this is ours, and it really is. It's way more everyone else's than it is mine. You know, I've been put in this situation, very fortunate, very blessed, but this is theirs, you know, and I'm just so happy to be here and be in the position, and hopefully can give back to them.
So I'll be wrong to ask you a food question, because I was watching back and listening back to your press conference just a couple days ago. You talked about taking the recruits to Oliverios, but I got to ask you, obviously in Texas, they're known for the barbecue.
Yeah.
But in Morgantown, in my honest opinion, being an alum of WVU, it seems like the pizza here is really good. What's your favorite pizza spot in Morgantown?
So when I'm at home, I usually go with homegrown pizza there. But if I'm in town or if I'm around here, it's probably Mountain State Brewery. Some of that wood oven pizza is good, and there's been some other ones. Pizza Owl's great. Ren really loves Castellanos. I've had it; it's good too. But you can't really go wrong. But if I had to pick a favorite, it'd probably be Mountain State Brewery.
Well, Coach, hopefully you can get a really good victory pie after a couple of wins this season. But good luck this season. Good luck in your super secret scrimmage, and then obviously playing Wheeling here soon. And obviously before you know it, you'll blink, and November 4th will be right there. So good luck to you this season.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
Absolutely. That's the men's head basketball coach of the West Virginia Mountaineers, head coach Ross Hodge. Be sure to check out all of our WVU coverage from now until March for the basketball side by going to our website, wvgazettemail.com. Be sure to follow us on Twitter at GazMail Sports. That's G-A-Z Mail Sports. And be sure to follow us on Facebook at HD Media Sports.